Hi, I'm Larry Wagner from Leave the Key Homebuyers. Today I want to talk about something that's very close to my heart, and that is when should a senior transition out of their home? I've been through this with my parents, and it's not an easy task. So, really, the people that should hopefully listen to this and watch this are seniors, but also the children of seniors. And sometimes they're seniors as well. But the things to look out for are when you go having frequent falls or injuries. That happens even more particularly when people have stairs in their home and they have trouble climbing stairs. But we know most injuries or serious injuries for seniors happen in the bathroom. And every house has one of those. Also, if they're having difficulties with daily tasks, just the usual things, whether it's taking care of themselves in a hygiene perspective or feeding themselves or even preparing food properly, that's what I have found is the first to go, is they tend to eat less and less because preparing food becomes more difficult. If there's memory lapses or confusion, not a good sign, and it's hard to live and maintain a home if you don't have full cognition. So something that becomes obvious to us, but we may not think of it as a time to leave, but it really is a time to start to prepare to move on and transition. Also, if the home is starting to fall into disrepair and there's real upkeep issues, it's definitely important because that's a sign of all these other issues that are arising. Again, back to the confusion. It could just be daily tasks is just too stressful, and that could be something to pay attention to. But something that's separate from all of these topics, and that is if they're isolated or you're seeing mood changes. Sometimes in seniors, especially single seniors, some without a spouse at this point in their lives, or if they've never had one, they're finding themselves more and more alone. Their friends have either passed away or moved into assisted living, independent living, nursing homes, or in with their children. And now they're just gone. And they find themselves home all day long. And when you're home alone and you're not used to being alone all the time, it definitely affects your mood. So those are definitely signs to pay attention to, whether it's you yourself as a senior or if you're the kids of seniors. Be realistic in the way you assess the situation. It's not so easy to be objective when in a subjective environment, but you have to do the best you can. But if you decide, okay, I'm ready, or my parents are ready to move, what kind of considerations, what do I have to do basically to prepare myself or prepare us to move? So there's things you can do, things you have to do beforehand, and one is you have to have open communication with your family. So if you're in need of having to move, the chances are you're going to need assistance moving. Whether it's all the things I'm going to talk about in a moment. But moving is very difficult. It's one of the most stressful activities in someone's life. And doing it at a time when your environment is making you move or requiring that you move, your health, your emotional state, your mental cognition is sort of putting you in a position to move. Don't try to do it without any help from your family. So you need to organize what you have, decide what you're taking. Remember, you're most likely downsizing a lot. Not necessarily, but most likely. If you're moving to a independent facility, let's say independent living facility or assisted living facility, or even more so a nursing home, the sort of the more care you're getting, the smaller the space you're going to be living in, most likely. So you want to do is start prepare the stuff you're going to take with you. But also you have to get your house ready for sale. So you want to declutter the house and to make it more appealing. Also, you want to take care of home repairs and updates. If you're selling on a retail basis, people say get rid of all the family pictures. That's what every realtor says. You don't want family pictures in the house. You don't want clutter in the house. I had a house that had roosters, little ceramic roosters above all the kitchen cabinets. Remove the ceramic roosters. They don't help sell your house. If you're selling to a cash buyer, that's not necessary. I'm a cash buyer. We look right past those roosters. We don't care what the house looks like. We walk in, we're there 3-4 minutes, we make an assessment. We're not looking at your stuff. We're looking at the house. When you are packing up and preparing the house to leave, something unrelated to the sale, but it happens at the same time, is gather all your important documents. Make sure the wills are in place, accessible, any trusts, any important documents, statements, things of that nature, Medicare cards, VA information, and so on. All that should be put into one place. If it's not already, now it's time to gather in one place. And if you're going to a facility of some sort, I recommend you give that to the children so they can keep it in their home. That's the kind of paperwork you don't want accessible to others. I mentioned before, keep the communication open with the family. That's something to communicate about. Also, work with professionals you trust. Trust is the key word with a capital T. There are senior downsizing organizations and individuals, and that's what they specialize in helping seniors move into facilities. They help you decide what to take, what not to take, and so on. And there are people who help organize your house, getting it ready for sale as well. There are senior placement consultants. They don't cost anything. If you're moving to, let's say, independent living, the independent living facility will pay them for referring them. So you don't pay them anything, and they'll make the process so much easier by telling you, after interviewing you, which are the logical places you should be looking at. It'll save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of stress, and they don't cost a dime, and you have someone holding your hand through the process. As a family, I did this with my own folks, and I did it without any help, and I did it with my in-laws with help. It was much easier the second time around. So from personal experience, I highly recommend bringing in a senior placement consultant. Home buyers. The question is, how do you sell your house? You've now prepared it for sale. How do you sell your house? Do you sell it to a cash buyer, or do you sell it through a realtor and go through that problem? Go through the trouble and the stress of selling through a realtor. So let's talk about that. If you're selling to a realtor, you have to the question is, do you sell your house before or after your move to a senior facility? So if you're going to sell it before you move, do you have the funds available for the care? Some places require that you pay a large upfront fee. Some require you just pay the typical $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $15,000, $18,000 a month here on Long Island, depending on the level of care you're getting. Nursing homes here in 2025 are running upwards of $18,000 a month. So many people need to sell their house to raise that kind of cash to shell out $18,000 a month. They may have $2,000 of Social Security and $2,000 pension. You got a big gap between that and $18,000 a month. So you have to make sure you have funds available for care. Also, avoid doubling your expenses, meaning you want to sell your house as soon as possible after moving into a facility. Well, if you're selling after, you want to sell as quickly as possible, but ideally you sell it before, or you sell it at the point of transition, so you're not paying for your taxes, your insurance, your utilities, and everything else while you've moved to a facility. So we highly recommend trying to coordinate the sale with the moving date. It's the ideal situation. Know what's available to spend. As I mentioned, if care is going to cost you between $8,000 and $18,000, or $7,000 and $18,000 a month, before you sell, make sure you know where that money's coming from. As I said, you want the money available when you need it. You can't just tell the facility, I'll pay you in a few months. They don't really like that. Sometimes they'll work with you if you have a house for sale, but they want to know what's going on. So the question is, what are the issues if you sell after? You have to address your health care needs first. That is by far the first and foremost. Your health, your safety takes priority over selling the house. I mean, you're moving because you need to move, because your personal situation has changed and you no longer should be in a home, especially alone. So make sure you take care of health first. If it means having to move first and you don't have the cash to pay, really try to find a place through a placement agent that we talked about who will be able to work with you and get you a place that will accept payment after you sell a house. Some will, some won't. If you sell after you move, it's easy to prepare a home for sale. You've taken the things out you want. You can call a clean-out company. They can take everything else out. Typically, when you're senior selling a home, most of the time, matter of fact, I'm going to say every time we've purchased a home from a senior, which is about 95% of the homes we purchase here on Long Island and Brooklyn and Queens, are from senior citizens. And when we do that, we try to donate what we can. But getting rid of their furniture and donating furniture and so on is next to impossible. It's a style of furniture that people just don't want anymore. Sorry, guys. That's just the reality of it. So it's easy to prepare a home for sale when you can remove everything. Everything you want has been taken, and now everything else can get sent away. It's also less stressful. Preparing a house for sale is very stressful. You're watching all your stuff go out the door. It's unsettling. You've had it there for decades, and now suddenly you're moving and your stuff's going, in many cases, to the garbage. Now what do you do? So let's talk about, you've now decided to sell before or after you move to a facility. Let's talk about how you're funding that facility. Well, many people fund it through savings, but you have to have a good amount of money to fund it through savings. Let's assume it's $12,000 a year. I'll use kind of a middle number here. And $12,000 a year is $12,000 a month is $144,000 a year. That's a lot of money, and seniors tend not to have that kind of income. So be aware you need other cash typically to pay for that home. Many people have long-term care insurance. In my financial advisory days, I sold lots of long-term care policies, and I'm thankful my parents had them. My mother needed care, and she used her long-term care policy and got a great benefit from it. So they're wonderful. They're hard to buy today because they just got so expensive, but there are alternatives now. But that's a whole nother video. A retail sale. If you're going to sell the house retail, you may need to raise the cash now, because selling a senior home retail could take months. And at the time of this recording, the market's starting to turn, and it's no longer a seller's market. It's kind of a neutral market, and it's about to go over the other way into a buyer's market, which means a home owned by a senior that's dated, has old furniture in it, and so on, is going to take longer to sell. Buyers today are millennials. Millennials like everything clean, ready to move in. They don't want to have to renovate, and so on. So the senior homes are really not ready for the buyers of today. That's where we come in. We buy senior homes and we make them ready for the buyers of today. So what some people do is they'll try to get a loan on their home, even though they know they're going to sell it in a little while. It's an expensive way to get money, but it can work. And the last thing is just do a quick sale to a cash buyer like us, and we could buy a home in a matter of weeks and get you the cash you need. And you have none of the work to do, no clean outs to do, no repairs to do, no maintenance to do. We buy it as is, not a problem. But this is not about me. This is about the transition. So what are the financial implications as a senior when you sell your house? The sale of the proceeds can be invested to generate income. So if you sell a house, you get $500,000 and you invested in let's call it a money market account today, 3%, right? On a $500,000, you're getting $15,000. You're getting a little over $1,000 a month. That's not going to cut it for you. You need other resources of funds. By the way, we borrow money from our home sellers, and we pay an interest rate 2 or 3 times that of the banks. So if anyone's selling a home, we're always happy to do that. And that way, that can give you, instead of $1,000 a month, you can get $3,000 a month for the same dollars, possibly. Capital gains tax. Be aware, there is capital gains tax to pay when you sell a home, depending on if you have enough profit on the home, and definitely consult with your accountant on that one. But I'm not an accountant. I can answer these questions, but I'm not about to do it in a setting like this, because I'd rather that be a one-on-one conversation. But definitely speak to your accountant about capital gains taxes and what's the implications to you. And the last thing is your impact on Medicaid. If you're on Medicaid at the time you sell your house, Medicaid does not require you sell your house to qualify for Medicaid. But if you sell your house, you now have an asset that Medicaid can attach. They can attach the proceeds of that house. We've worked with a Medicaid specialist, and we were able to preserve $500,000 of the $700,000 of the proceeds for the homeowner who was on Medicaid. So that worked out very well. I was shocked that the person we brought in was so successful. I was very, very pleased. As a matter of fact, I even hired him. I paid for him just to help the seller keep as much of the proceeds as possible. And way more successful than we both thought. I've talked about the technical sides, why you have to move, the financial implications of moving, and the process of moving. But let's not miss, I think, is probably the most important part. and handling the emotional side of moving. I'm now talking to you guys, the kids of these seniors, my generation. And keep in mind, mom and dad have been independent all their lives. And they've been married for 50, 60 years if they're married, or they've been your parents for decades. They're adults. And now they're finding they're relying on other people. They're learning they can't live on their own for the first time in their lives. They can't take care of themselves. Don't ignore the emotional impact that's having on them. Don't discount it. It's really critical. Keep the lines of communication opened. Listen more than you speak when you talk to them about the process. But at the same time, emphasize the positivity of what's going to come about moving into a facility. Don't talk about anything negative because, quite frankly, it's almost all positive. And they're going to get the idea of maintaining continuity in their life. They're going to sit there and be independent within a facility. They may have their own apartment, or maybe they'll share a room, depending on the kind of place you're moving to. If it's independent or assisted living or nursing home's another story. But then they may have lost their friends, but now they're in a place they can get new friends. And I say this all the time. My mother said to me when I wanted my parents to go to a independent living, she said to me, "That's the place people go to die." And my comment was, "That's the place people go and die. The alternative is staying home and dying. The dying's a given. Where you do, it's another story. So don't let your parents think that this is the end. It's the beginning of something new." My parents, who had 50 sets of friends, 50 couples of friends, by the time they moved 10 minutes away to an independent living, they were down to 3. Their friends had either passed away or moved on, moved away. And those are the 2 choices. They were one of the few left. And their lives are very different. And quite frankly, even though the 2 of them, they were very lonely, even though they lived in the same house. It just wasn't the life they were used to. And within weeks of moving to a new place, they had a whole new bunch of friends. They're back playing bridge, socializing, and participating in activities. So emphasize all the positivity that they're going to be having, and don't let them focus and dwell on anything negative. Also, when they move, you really want them to have as much of a new start as possible, but at the same time, as I mentioned a moment ago, you want to maintain continuity in their lives. And one way to do that is photos. Definitely bring photos and hang photos on the wall. If they're your kids, I'm talking maybe the kids now or grandkids, hang those photos on the wall. Get those those electronic picture frames that the pictures change every 30 seconds or so. So they're always seeing their family around them. Bring the artwork from the walls. Bring some of their furniture, their favorite pieces if it fits. Even if it's not, you're not going to bring all the furniture, but bring select pieces that will make them feel like they're still at home, like little has changed. And the only changes you want them to experience are positive changes. And that's what you really have to emphasize. Trust me, it was not an easy process. It took me an entire year to get my parents to consider moving. And when they moved, they never looked back. They said this was the best thing they had done in a number of years, and they were sorry they didn't do it sooner. And it's important that people hear stories like that. One last comment I want to make, and that is, and I heard this on a podcast I had done with a senior placement gentleman, and he said that we look at assisted living facilities as to what they are today. They're beautiful facilities with wonderful food, big menus, lots of activities. But our parents look at them as nursing homes, and nursing homes from the time of their parents. Nursing homes at the time of their parents, when they were seniors, 30 years before or 25 years before, were very different than what we see today. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want to put my parents in those either. So you have to get them to at least go view one. And guys, I'm talking to the seniors now, go view one. Don't make your kids make you do this. They're so different. They're going to that's like going to a country club with a bunch of senior citizens. That's what it is. So please have an open mind. Go visit them. If you need a placement person, feel free, to reach out to us and we'll help out. Because we know plenty of them. But definitely look at them, get the experience of them. They'll let you stay them they'll usually let you stay for a weekend to try them out. So we spend a lot of time buying homes from senior citizens, as I mentioned a few times on this call. And I've been through this process with my parents and my in-laws. So I'm well-versed at it. I spent 30 years working exclusively with the retirement community, as a financial advisor. So this is my universe, and seniors are my peeps. I know the other guys I talk to and deal with all day long. So feel free to reach out to us anytime at Leave the Key Homebuyers. You can visit us at leavethekey.com, or you can call us off. Different phone numbers are on the website. You can reach out and ask for me, Larry Wagner, directly, or speak to anyone in the company. I look forward to speaking with anyone and everyone. Thank you.